Hello, listeners, and welcome to the Adapt podcast about how society adapts to the world's growing challenges. My name is Harish Murugesan, and I am a present senior at Dublin Jerome High School in Dublin, Ohio. Now, today I have the honor to be joined by Mrs. Alisha McFetridge, a prominent businesswoman working on renewable products. Mrs. McFetridge is known for her commitment to sustainability and renewability. This is seen as she has worked as the Sustainability Committee Chair at the Railroads University and also holds an MSc in climate change. Ms. McFetridge also supports women in the field of business and entrepreneurship through her position as a mentor at the Women Mentorship Program at Startup Canada. Today, Ms. McFetridge is joining us and is recognized as the co-founder and CEO of the company Rainstick, a company with a unique take on the shower. So first of all, thank you again for joining me today.
And thank you so much for that lovely introduction. I'm super excited to be here.
What can I say? I guess I did my research. So firstly, the first question I like to ask lots of my past interviews is I always like to know what steps took you to the place you're at, and essentially what is your story to how you've made it to this company today?
Yeah, totally. Well, first off, I think in North America, we have a lot of stuff and we have a lot of resources. And I come from a little bit up north. I'm located in Canada, and I'm on the west coast of Canada in Canada's only desert region. You know, you talk to Canadians and we don't even realize that we have a desert here, but it's the Okanagan Valley. And so water has always been an area of my life where I've looked to conserve it. I've looked for ways that I can reduce my consumption. And it's something that even our community has found ways to think creatively about how we use water. And so, from a young age, that's something that I always thought about. But really, I would say my sustainability journey started shortly after I graduated high school. I ended up spending some time. Originally, I studied business, so international business, and I majored in sustainability. Learned a lot about a lot of different things. You really just touch on different aspects of sustainability. And, after that, I knew that I wanted to pursue working in a sector that prioritizes sustainability. And so I ended up spending some time working for an NGO, actually, and going overseas and doing some volunteerism. And then I ended up working, and that led me to water management. And so I had seen it growing up with water scarcity in the Okanagan Valley, but seeing it overseas was actually really eye-opening because the difference was, in North America, we have a lot of the infrastructure and we overuse the limited water resources that we have. In other areas like rural Kenya, for example, it takes a lot of time out of the day to walk to the nearest area where you can collect water. The infrastructure isn't there. The usage is way lower, but there's still so many opportunities for water security. And so I came back to North America and I did actually a stint working for some tech companies, but I knew that I wanted to dig into water management. I wanted to do more within North America. And that was really the beginning of thinking about ways now that us North Americans can not have to compromise on the water or on our experience, but also build out different ways and avenues that we could do so much more with less.
Got it. And when you talk about, like you said, a water scarcity, it almost reminds me of some of the stories my dad told me growing up. He grew up in a village in South India, and he often would tell me stories about like how he had to go at least a few miles to fetch water out of this one well that the village would share. So it reminded me a lot about that. And which got me curious as to, did you actually face any like severe issues growing up with such water scarcity?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think I definitely saw it when I was working in some of those rural areas. Specifically where I grew up, we always had access to water infrastructure, but we always knew that it came at a cost. Um, Let me give you an example of this. The city officials, depending on the time of year and how accessible water was at that time, they would regulate how often you were able to water your lawn, for example. They limited the use or they limited the ability to be able to use water to do anything except essential sources. Like, don't even think about cleaning your car or, cleaning off your driveway using water. That just wasn't an option for times of year. Otherwise, you could get a ticket from the by law enforcement. And so that's maybe the extent of the way that I dealt with it. So it definitely, wasn't walking kilometers or having the taps run dry, but it's definitely, I knew that water was something that we needed to value from a very early age.
That's so interesting because I think growing up for me, my childhood is very different too. I think
Mhm.
what the place you're describing right now, like in the environment and time I think North Americans are in right now, it seems almost common and easy to just have a 30-minute shower and a hot shower at most. So it's definitely shocking. So, well, as we come to the topic of showers, especially, I wanted to know and tell the viewers as well, what is the Rainstick and how is it essentially going to help like those people taking a 30-minute shower and to like make it more efficient?
Yeah, for sure. So when we looked at water use, we started to say, okay, what do we need to do to create water conservation tech that doesn't often make people compromise? And so we really started to do a deep dive. We looked at the amount of water that we use within a residential household. I'm going to quote gallons instead of liters. In the US, we use an average of 80 to 90 US gallons of water per person per day. That's about 700 bottles worth of water per person. And so it's a staggering amount. And if we look at where that water is utilized within the residential home, 50% of that is in the bathroom. And so that's really where we knew we were starting. We've seen some efficiency with toilet flushing. We really haven't been able to see the same thing with our showers because I think it's so much. There's so many reasons why people love a nice long shower. They might have kids, and it's the only way they can, relax and refresh. They might have a really stressful career, and they want to just take some time um, to think and debrief. And it's often people say it's where a lot of their best thoughts happen. But to date, the only real solution that's been deployed in the showering space is bringing or slowly ratcheting the flow down. So we've seen that happen from a regulation perspective. And consumers are upset, but in the grand scheme of things, it actually doesn't really do very much in terms of water use because we've just done it so gradually. And so that's really kind of why we said we need to do something more. We need to do something drastic. So we save a substantial amount of water and there must be another way. And so that's why we've taken the time, and it's taken a lot of time to refine this technology, but we've developed Rainstick. So it's a shower appliance that saves the same amount as a whole home gray water system, but it does so within a single appliance. So the way that some of the benefits, I'll say it saves up to 80% water and 80% energy. And the technology is still able to provide 2 times or double the flow rate in some cases. So that's 3 gallons per minute at the shower head while only using half a gallon per minute from the house supply. And so we're able to do that through point of use recirculation and real-time cleaning. So we're constantly cleaning that loop, and it's a semi-closed loop in that we bring in fresh water every shower, except instead of going down the drain, we capture a bit of it, we circulate it, we're constantly cleaning, we're refreshing that loop. And the result is about a swimming pool's worth of water in savings over the course of one rain stick that's installed over a year. So it's a drastic change in terms of water savings.
I guess this is just allowing for more opportunities to sing in the shower while still being efficient. But as you bring up like the flow rate and having as much water as a swimming pool, does this in turn have any effects on the pressure? Because as you go up to see higher end, I think like water systems and showers,
Yeah.
the pressure of the water seems to be an important subject and idea. So
Yeah.
is there any correlation to that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. The nice thing is that because we're recirculating the water in that semi-closed loop, we no longer care about the shower pressure or the flow rate that we're providing users. We're able to compliantly provide 3 gallons per minute from the shower head. And to put it into perspective, the regulated flow rate in many jurisdictions, I believe Ohio is around 2.2 gallons per minute, but we can do so compliantly, providing 3 gallons per minute because we're only actually using half a gallon per minute from the house supply because of our semi-closed recirculation loop. So in terms of consumer experience, it's drastically better. You're getting much more shower flow. You're able to actually have that relaxation. It's like a spa on a stick, but you're saving up to 80% water overall over the course of your shower session.
That's quite cool. But when you mentioned like the closed circuit regulation system, I really thought of how the consumer experience is for installing this. So would this type of a product need to like be connected to a plumbing system, any other water system, or how would the installation be?
Yeah, it's so it Rainstick is installed very similar to a traditional shower today. So essentially, you're going through a renovation project or a new build project, and so the time in which you install is very similar. The steps are very similar to a traditional shower. So we said, okay, is there any way that we might be able to even install a rain stick in a shorter time than a traditional shower? And so we've actually just recently come out with a 1-day install method. So we've developed a rain stick shower base that goes down during the installation. We have some shower wall cavities, so it removes the need to tile. And we can actually go in as long as we have the space pre-measured. We can go in, take out the existing shower, put in a rain stick within 1 day. So in terms of the actual requirement, we say any bathroom professional. So you do require a professional or someone that is comfortable within the bathroom space. You will hook rain stick up to hot and cold, to similar to a regular shower today. And then at the base of the appliance, we install it's about 3.5 inches in depth. It's very small, and that allows for the semi-closed loop to happen. It connects to your sanitary drain or your plumbing. And so it's kind of like a linear drain in the way that that's installed. And so you either do that with tile or and we already have our reservoir in the shower base. So you just put that down and that really speeds up the install.
So when dealing with the flow rate, as you said previously, for the rain stick, you specifically mentioned there was like different like regulations specific to Ohio. So is there any troubles that you faced when trying to make a product more accessible for a certain region? And were there certain regulations that kind of made you cut off some parts of this?
You know what? Anytime you bring a brand new technology to market, there's always a regulatory pathway that you have to look at to make sure that you're adhering to. And so pretty early days, we said, okay, what is North America going to allow in terms of our technology? Are we going to have any issues as we go to market? I would say, so overall in the US, and I'll use the US as an example, the regulated flow rate is 2.5 gallons per minute. But then Beyond that, individual states have their own plumbing regulations. So, for example, California, in most areas, and then there's even some municipality-specific changes that they've done, they've mandated a 1.8 gallon per minute flow rate. So if you want to sell to California, you can't sell a 2.5 gallon per minute shower. You have to go down and ratchet it down. And I believe Ohio then has its own. And so those are definitely were, I won't say red flags, but the patterned orange flags, things that we were looking at when we were going through our regulation. And so we worked extensively with regulators as we were going through our certification process to say, what do we need to do? How do we need to adhere to plumbing regs so that we won't have issues in market? And plumbers will look at Rainstick and say, I'm not going to install that because I don't know what it is. And so we were able to combat that by working closely with some of the certifiers. And it was the first time, but they have certified Rainstick. And so despite the fact that we have 3 gallons per minute at the flow rate, at the shower head, we only use half a gallon. And that's why we've been able to be certified. So Rainstick is now fully compliant for installation within North America.
So you're specifically stating North America. So I was curious as to, are you facing this sort of an issue when it comes to implementing this in other countries, or are there simply just not plans to implement it for now?
Every time you take a new technology, and I'll say it took us about 24 months to go through our certification efforts. Every time you go to a new market, there's definitely a process that we know is sometimes more complex, or depending on the type of country, the type of laws, and so you have to dig into them in a lot of detail. We have really extensively focused on North America because it's such a large market for this technology. But our plan is to start in North America and then go to other key areas. And for us, definitely looking at water scarcity, definitely looking at areas where there might be, say, some drive for environmental mandates and environmental type of technologies, and also climate reductions through some of the government incentives. And so I keep referring to North America because it's the market I know and the market we're in. But we definitely have plans. It's just part of our pathway. We'll be looking at the certifications before we enter those markets. And we have a few ideas of places that we're going next. I will say we're already working in Australia and New Zealand, and we're going through the certification right now. So that's kind of the next frontier. And then we envision going into other places, including Europe.
Sweet. So it's almost as if time goes on, you just want to expand the market, right?
Totally. Yes. We want
Got
everybody
it.
to have a recirculating shower.
So this is actually a general question as just innovations as total, because I've always thought of like physical products such as, the Rainstick and some of the previous products that I've looked into on the show. I've always had the question as if, does time and brand new technologies evolving make it easier, or does it give you the opportunity to go back and redesign some things? Are there some parts of the Rainstick which you think, oh, maybe in the future, if a smaller modulus comes in, I can maybe tweak it to make it more efficient for the consumer to install, or any other efficiencies that would be gained over time as technology evolves?
Absolutely. I mean, every single time you come up with a new version, you're learning a ton about the technology. And then when you install it in, 100 homes, and you learn what works really well, what people love, what people hate. And I think, it's been up to us to figure out, okay, you don't like this, so now we're going to start to change this and incorporate it as we evolve our technology over time. So we've looked at a lot of different use cases for this technology. So from a product perspective, we're pretty excited about some of the verticals that we can get into in the future. That might allow for, you hinted at, size. That's part of our product pathway is we're actually going to be officially announcing a new variation of Rainstick next month. That's going to be solving the problem of smaller spaces. And that's, again, from learning from being with folks. I'll say one constraint that our technology has right now is you can't install Rainstick where there's a bathtub. It doesn't work with bathtubs. We would need to almost create a new type of bathtub that has a reservoir and allows for recirculation. And so we always get a lot of questions about bathtubs because if you have two bathrooms in your home, typically one is a shower cabin, the other one is bathtubs. So we're losing out on opportunities to be able to integrate the technology into both the bathrooms. And so, we're always learning. There's always things. I think it's part of being a startup company is to listen to the feedback and to recognize that there's constantly an evolution. And I would say also the one thing I'm noticing is depending on what market you're in, even geographically, there's different preferences. So we're seeing that, depending on where folks are located, people have different questions and they want different things. And so also really listening to that as we're starting to say, okay, when we go to Germany or Switzerland, for example, we need to think about X, Y, and Z.
Got it. So it's almost like it's like when that evolution of technology comes, you're always going to look to implement it, right? Similar to that. Yeah. But when we talk about the evolution of technology, it always kind of reminds me of what I see personally in like modern day technology. And the first example when I ask this question actually that comes to mind is the iPhone. So for me, when I first saw the iPhone, when it first was created and developed, it was like shocking and it was like brand new and everyone was super excited about it. But I feel like as time goes on, although there are innovations that are made to the iPhone and there are like significant changes inside, I feel like people are getting less and less excited about, let's say, the iPhone 16 that may come out this year. So is that sort of a common trend for innovation? Does the excitement and the sort of large leaps that were made in the like at the beginning of the time, does that slowly just gradually change over time to kind of a mellow, just easy innovation, or can innovation still have those large leaps over time?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it absolutely can. I would say when you look at these companies like Apple, initially, they were focused on a different segment. Because if you look at the innovation cycle, you have I believe it's the early adopters, then you have the innovators, then you have the early majority, then we have the majority, then you have the late majority. And you look at kind of the groups of people that will say, okay, I'm going to try this new technology. Rainstick is still very much in the early adopter segment. Not everybody is going to say, I want a recirculating shower. I'm scared. They might say, I've never tried that. But we're really focused on that innovative segment of folks that are saying, I want to try something different. Once we go through that, this is really kind of still in that testing bed. And you go into the innovator market, which might be larger customers that are kind of the innovators. They're willing to try things. And so there you can still do a lot in terms of the innovation. But once you get to the tried and tested technology, it's only really there that the next group of customers, that kind of early majority, will start to get super excited about this technology and actually adopt it. So I wonder if groups like Apple, they're now focused on the majority. They're now in kind of the late majority, and they've almost run their course of that innovation cycle. And so now they're just making smaller modifications that appease the masses. But I think for a company like Apple, what they need to do is find a way to get back into the early adopter segment. And maybe that's not with the iPhone, but they need to create a new product. And so I think in terms of Rainstick, we still have a lot of growth potential in terms of, coming up with that really innovative pieces to our core technology. But there's going to be a time where we have to say, okay, Rainstick is now with the masses. What's this next product that might be complementary and that's also super innovative that can be different, but can also work really well with our company and also with our mission of allowing folks to thrive using only 13 gallons of water per person per day.
Yeah, totally. And I think when you say complementary products, that brings up the question for me is there any plans? Because as you said, when it comes to water sustainability, it's not only showers. It's although a large part of it, as you said, is comes from the bathroom. There's also things like dishwashers and clothing washers as well. So, is there any plans in the future to kind of evolve that idea of water sustainability and to reduce the flow rate and stuff on products like a dishwasher and like a clothing washer as well?
Yeah, for sure. When we look at the household, there's a lot of opportunities. For us, we've started with the bathroom in that we said, okay, after the shower, we want to get into other spaces that are within the bathroom and then own the bathroom space and turn on that water conservation play. Once we do that, then we have big plans to look at other areas within the residential home. And so I think a clothes washer is a perfect example of an application that we use a lot of water, but not just any water. We typically use hot water, and that hot water has that embodied heat energy in it. And so it's energy intensive, and there's ways that we can substantially reduce that if we start thinking about reusing and, just dealing with that lightly contaminated water.
Got it. So it's almost like, I guess when developing a product, you're kind of focusing keenly on like a divide and conquer strategy. Like I noticed you said we should take over all the products in the bathroom space and make those more efficient first before we go on to other sort of fields. So is that kind of the main strategy it comes to when it comes to getting new ideas for future products?
Totally. Yes, absolutely. And if we could talk a little bit about some of our crazy ideas for the future, but it's very much, I think something that we've learned over time is focus on a smaller segment and really build out that segment in a lot of detail before you start going on to another space. Because otherwise you can get so engrossed in so many different areas at the same time. We're still relatively small, and so we won't make as large of an impact if we focus on too many things at the same time. And so I mentioned we're focused largely on North America as a geography right now, and it's kind of that same idea. We really want to work on getting our brand awareness, allowing folks to choose water conservation products, and then we start to focus on other areas once we have sufficient deployment and we've executed in that space.
Sweet. Now, sadly, as we are running out of time, I always like to ask a very specific question to all the previous interviews and that is dealing with, I think, today. And as we have seen, like lots of new technologies are coming about, like artificial intelligence through things like Chat GPT and augmented reality. I always like to ask the innovators of today as to what do you think is that next step or next innovation that is going to come after artificial intelligence? Because at a point in time in my life, I did not predict things like artificial intelligence and augmented reality were coming. So it's always a good question for me to solve my curiosity as to what the innovators right now will think what our future is.
Yeah, I think that we're in kind of this AI movement right now, and I think this future holds. I think consumers are more and more concerned about protection and security with AI. So I can see in the future we are going to look at smart cities integrating all of these technologies, but we're going to become increasingly more aware of our personal security and our country's security. And so I think there's going to be a degree of balance where we balance all of these new technologies that are coming. And I think in terms of, if I think about water specifically, or energy or climate related technologies, I can see that being one of the next frontiers, because we're in a place where we need to do so much more. I think energy has been really the forefront of the environmental, carbon emission reductions, and kind of the forefront what's getting people excited. But I think water is just getting there. We're about 10 years behind energy. So I can see more reuse. I think it's the future is reusing water in a variety of buildings, structures, municipalities. And I think we're going to see some pretty exciting technologies come from Europe, the Middle East, and, of course, right here in our own backyard within North America.
I couldn't agree more. Honestly, things like artificial intelligence are scaring people more than it is exciting people. I feel like, due to lots of the reviews of my friends and families and how they feel on it. So it'll definitely be an interesting space to see how that grows. Now, lastly, I just want to thank you again, Ms. Fetridge, for joining us today on the Adapt podcast. And soon we'll have another episode soon. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.